The billion-dollar heist at the Bangladesh Central Bank in 2016. During the weekend, employees at the Bangladesh Central Bank were shocked to find that the printer, which is responsible for printing international wire transfer transactions, was malfunctioning. What they didn't realize at the time was that they were about to face the largest digital heist in history. The systems had been breached by one of the most dangerous hacker groups in the world, a group with the capability to break into and dismantle the most complex digital security systems. And the most shocking part? This group was supported and operated by an entity we'll reveal at the end of the story. Hello, I'm Sham. Bangladesh is a Muslim country, and their weekend consists of Friday and Saturday. This means that only a few essential employees come to work at the Bangladesh Central Bank on these days. Specifically, those responsible for international wire transfers. You might have heard of the term SWIFT code. It refers to the global system for international transfers that most banks around the world use. SWIFT is actually a Belgian company whose main job is to provide a network that enables banks across the globe to communicate. For example, if a customer at a bank in one country wants to transfer money to a customer at a bank in another country, the transfer has to go through the SWIFT network. It ensures that both banks can process the transaction securely and efficiently. These transactions happen digitally. No physical money is being transferred from one bank to the other. It's all about transferring numbers in a ledger. But today's story is not about hacking the SWIFT system itself, because SWIFT is incredibly secure. When international transfers happen, they are recorded in a digital ledger on a computer and printed out by a physical printer at the bank. These printed records ensure that there's a hard copy of each transaction. On Thursday, February 4th, 2016, after finishing their shifts at 5 p.m., employees left the bank and locked the doors. The next day, Friday, only essential personnel came to work. The employee responsible for overseeing the SWIFT transfers came in on Friday morning to check if any transactions had occurred overnight. But to his surprise, no documents were printed. At first, he was confused. There was no way no transactions had been made that night. Why were there no printed records? But the digital ledger on the computer looked normal, showing that transfers had taken place as expected. So, the only explanation seemed to be that the printer itself was malfunctioning. The staff spent the rest of Friday trying to fix the printer, but nothing worked. Eventually, they assumed it was just a technical glitch and decided to leave for the weekend, hoping it would be fixed on Sunday when the technical team would return to the office. When the essential staff returned to work on Saturday, the printer was still malfunctioning, but after a few hours of trying, the printer suddenly started working again. Immediately, it began printing the records for the transfers that had occurred from Thursday night to Saturday morning. But then, the shock came. Among the printed records, there were 35 transactions that weren't reflected in the digital ledger. The total value of these transactions amounted to $951 million, nearly $1 billion. These transactions had been sent to the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, as the Bangladesh Central Bank has an account there. This account holds billions of dollars in reserve for the country, as part of Bangladesh's national currency reserves. These funds were supposed to be part of the country's official reserves, but now they had been illegally transferred to foreign accounts. The technical details of the hackers had exploited a flaw in the SWIFT system's security, which is otherwise considered one of the most secure financial systems in the world. They used a technique called the backdoor Trojan, a form of malware that gives the hackers access to a system without being detected. They found a vulnerability in the system due to weak passwords and outdated security updates. Once inside, the hackers manipulated the system to hide the transfers they were making. They bypassed normal authentication protocols, allowing them to execute the transactions without triggering the usual security checks. The key figures in the investigation: Mohammed Nasser, the lead investigator, was heading a team of cybersecurity experts at the Bangladesh Cybersecurity Agency. Nasser had worked in national cybersecurity agencies before and was deeply concerned that this might have been a state-sponsored attack. His team focused on tracing the origin of the breach, which seemed to lead to international hackers. Dr. Lisa Johnson, a cybersecurity expert from the United States, was called in to assist with the investigation. Dr. Johnson was a specialist in social engineering tactics, and she quickly identified that the hackers had used advanced psychological manipulation to deceive the bank staff into executing the transactions without suspecting anything. Ahmed Farouk, one of the senior officials at Bangladesh Central Bank, was among the first to notice the problem. He was the one who initially pointed out the oddity with the printer and initiated the internal investigation that led to the discovery of the heist. The aftermath and investigation. After months of investigation, it became clear that the hackers were part of an international group known as the Shadow Brokers. This group had ties to an unknown government-backed entity. The hackers had used highly advanced methods to route the stolen money to accounts in countries like the Philippines and Sri Lanka. Despite some money being tracked to the Philippines, the local authorities in those countries were unable to recover the funds. While some of the hackers were identified and their locations traced, many of them remain at large. The incident sparked major reforms in banking security worldwide, and it became a wake-up call for many financial institutions to overhaul their cyber defense systems. To this day, the full scale of the operation and the identity of those behind the hackers remain a mystery. The heist may have been one of the most sophisticated cybercrimes in history, but it also marked a turning point in global cybersecurity.